Imagine that you're on a boat with your family, spending your vacation in the middle of the blue ocean. Everything looks peaceful and normal. Calm waves, a clear sky, and laughter all around. But then, in just one unexpected moment, everything changes. Suddenly, the ocean water begins to disappear, and before you realize it, you're trapped on the dry, barren ground that was once deep beneath the sea. 100 questions start to run through your mind. Where did all the water go? Will it come back? And if it does, what happens to us? This is exactly what happens in this story that will leave you holding your breath. The story begins with a family celebrating their son Ben's birthday on a boat, somewhere in the middle of the Caribbean Ocean. They're happy, relaxed, and ready to make unforgettable memories, unaware that their joy is only going to last for a few more moments. Everything seems perfectly fine at first. While everyone enjoys the ocean view, Ben's mom, Julia, decides to jump into the water for a swim. Meanwhile, Ben and his father, Tom, are busy fishing. But suddenly, Julia feels something unusual in the water, like a huge creature circling around her. She looks around but sees nothing. Then, out of nowhere, something grabs her and pulls her deep under the water. At the same time, the equipment on their boat starts shaking and shifting direction rapidly, as if something massive is moving nearby. Ben and Tom don't notice what's happening because they're focused on fishing. Julia realizes that she's drifting far away from the boat, struggling to stay afloat. She screams for help, calling out to Tom, but her voice doesn't reach them. Then she notices something even stranger. The ocean water around her is retreating fast, as if being sucked away. She calls out for her daughter, Cassie, who's wearing headphones and completely unaware, enjoying the sunshine. Neither Ben, Cassie, nor Tom know that Julia went swimming. She's drifting farther away, but luckily, Tom catches the faint sound of her voice. He looks around, spots her, and immediately dives into the water to save her. Ben quickly starts the engine and steers the boat toward them. Thankfully, Tom manages to grab Julia before she drowns, and they both make it back to the boat. Ben and Cassie pull them aboard, saving Julia's life. Once everyone's safe, Tom scolds Cassie. He says, "Where was your attention? I told you to keep an eye on your mom when she was swimming." Cassie apologizes, explaining that she was wearing headphones and didn't hear anything. Tom warns everyone that no one will go swimming again without informing the others first. Everyone agrees, and since it's getting dark, they start preparing for Ben's birthday celebration. Later that night, after celebrating, Cassie gets a video call from her boyfriend. She tells him they're having a great time on the boat. But her boyfriend looks tense and tells her that something massive is about to happen, something unusual that could affect the whole world. Cassie notices a huge storm forming behind him on the video. She starts to panic because they're in the middle of the ocean with no safe place to go. As they talk, their connection suddenly cuts off. Cassie runs to her parents and tells them what happened. They immediately start checking the boat's safety systems. While doing so, they notice dozens of whales and sharks swimming frantically around their boat, which is strange, because such creatures are never seen in this part of the ocean. Tom, being an experienced ocean explorer, knows what this means. Whales and sharks act this way right before a massive, catastrophic storm. They already have a bad feeling, but before they can react, their boat is struck violently by something from below. The entire family panics. Tom realizes that something huge just hit the underside of the boat. He dives underwater to check the damage, and what he sees leaves him shocked. There's a massive dent in the hull, far too large to be caused by anything normal. It could only have been made by an enormous shark. When Tom comes back up from the water, there's a deep wound on his shoulder. Julia immediately begins stitching it up. Tom tells his family that the shark's impact caused serious damage to the boat's engine. It's no longer working. They can't move the boat anymore. Now, they're completely stranded in the middle of the ocean, and their only hope is to call for help. Cassie goes outside to try and send a distress signal, but there's no network at all. The boat's communication system isn't picking up anything. Everyone's confused and terrified. How did everything suddenly stop working? In this desperate situation, Tom checks their remaining supplies. There's only enough food to last 4 days, nothing more. Still, there's a small ray of hope. They're on a known shipping route, so maybe a passing ship might spot them and come to rescue them. But while they're talking, they suddenly hear a loud roaring noise from the sky. When they look outside, they see a massive meteorite heading straight toward them. It's about to collide with their boat. Tom quickly tries to start the damaged engine, knowing that doing so might destroy it completely. But he has no other choice. If he doesn't move the boat, the meteorite will hit them directly. He manages to start the engine, and just as he feared, it burns out completely. The engine is destroyed. Then they realize the object that fell wasn't a meteorite at all, it was a satellite. That's why their radio and phone signals suddenly stopped working. They're still trying to recover from the shock when another fiery object comes crashing down from the sky, heading toward them. This time, they have no choice but to hide. The family rushes into the lower cabin of the boat, putting on life jackets so that if the boat flips, they won't drown. The boat begins shaking violently. It feels like the world itself is breaking apart. They hold on to each other tightly, terrified. Then, there's a deafening explosion, and everything goes black. When they wake up, they're still alive, injured, but breathing. They look around and realize something impossible has happened. There are holes all over the boat, yet no water is coming in. Confused, they climb out onto the deck, and what they see leaves them completely stunned. The ocean is gone. The boat isn't floating anymore. It's sitting on dry, cracked ground surrounded by dead fish. The vast seabed stretches endlessly around them like a barren desert of rocks and cliffs. It looks like another planet. They soon realize the horrifying truth. They haven't left the ocean. They're still in the middle of it, but all the water has shifted somewhere else. Tom quickly takes out his compass, trying to understand what's going on. Then it hits him, the Earth's poles have shifted. The North and South poles have switched places. Because of this, all the oceans have drained away from their original positions and flooded the continents. The places that were once land are now deep underwater. The realization leaves everyone in shock. Tom explains that people who were on land when the poles shifted probably didn't survive. Cassie is devastated. She locks herself in the cabin, crying, because she knows that her boyfriend must have died in the disaster. Meanwhile, Julia starts gathering whatever food they have left. Ben releases his birthday balloons into the air, hoping that if anyone else is still alive, they'll see them and come for help. Tom tries using the radio one last time. He doesn't expect a response, but to his surprise, someone answers. The voice introduces himself as Captain NATO. He's in a submarine and knows exactly what's happening. He tells Tom that the poles have indeed shifted, but in about a week, they'll move back to their original positions. When that happens, all the ocean water will return, and the waves will be unimaginably massive. Captain NATO warns Tom that when the water comes back, it will destroy everything left on the ocean floor. You must find higher ground, he says. If you do that, your family might survive. I'll be safe inside my submarine. Julia quickly begins packing their essentials. Tom asks the captain if he can take his family inside the submarine with him. The captain wishes he could, but he says his submarine is damaged and has space for only 2 people. He explains that one of his crew members has already died, and only one more person could fit inside safely. Tom pleads with him, "Please take my 2 children. I'll give you all our remaining food in exchange." The captain agrees. He gives Tom his coordinates on the map. Tom looks at it carefully and tells Julia, "We can reach that submarine in 2 days. If we move quickly, we can get the kids there before the ocean returns. They'll live." The next morning, the family begins their journey. But as they're preparing, Tom sees a strange man approaching from the distance with a dog. The man looks injured. Out of kindness, Tom takes a bottle of water and walks toward him to help. But as soon as the man drinks the water, he attacks Tom. Julia screams from the boat as the man stabs Tom with a knife, killing him. The stranger then turns toward Julia. Horrified, she rushes back into the boat, locks her children inside the cabin, and gives Cassie a flare gun. "Use this only if things get really bad," she says. The man soon climbs onto their boat. Julia hides in the bathroom as he starts searching for food. When he finds their supplies, he devours them like a starving animal. After eating, he begins looking for Julia again. He moves toward the cabin, but when he opens it, there's no one there. Julia has escaped through a hole in the boat's side. The man's dog spots her outside and starts barking. To stay hidden, Julia has no choice. She kills the dog quietly and hides under the boat. When the man finds his dog dead, he realizes Julia must be nearby. He climbs down to search for her, but Julia quickly climbs back onto the boat. She breaks through the glass and slips inside, trying to protect her kids. But soon, the man catches her. He grabs her by the hair and begins choking her. Julia fights back desperately, struggling to survive. Cassie, watching everything from the cabin, remembers the flare gun. She fires it. The burning flare hits the man, throwing him back. He screams, but he's not dead yet. Still, it gives them a chance to escape. Flames begin spreading across the boat. Their only hope now is to survive the fire and the return of the sea. Julia rushes out of the burning boat with her 2 children, desperate to save them. As she's climbing out, the killer attacks her once again, but this time, Julia fights back fiercely, kicking him hard and knocking him backward into the flames. Outside, Cassie and Ben see their father's lifeless body and break down crying. They never imagined things would end like this. Ben blames himself, saying, "If I hadn't released those balloons, that man wouldn't have seen us and come here." Julia, holding her husband's body, sobs uncontrollably. But suddenly, she sees the killer again. He's crawling out of the burning boat, still alive. There's no time left. Julia grabs her children, and they run. Moments later, their boat explodes behind them in a massive blast. Exhausted and trembling, they hide behind a rocky hill to rest, hoping the killer has finally stopped chasing them. Ben is still crying. Cassie gives him clean water to drink, trying to calm him, but he refuses. Julia holds him and says gently, "It's not your fault. You released those balloons to call for help." Just then, she notices movement in the distance. The killer is still following them. Panic spreads. The 3 of them start running again, even though they're already weak and out of breath. Every time they look back, he's still there. Eventually, they reach a dangerous area filled with toxic, acidic water. It's the only path forward. Julia orders her children to cross, even though it could kill them. They move through carefully, their skin burning from the acid. By the time they make it across, Ben is dehydrated and barely conscious. Julia gives him the last few drops of water they have, but it's not enough. Cassie starts losing hope. She says, "What if the submarine isn't even there? What if we're walking toward nothing?" Julia shouts at her, "Stop talking like that. Do as I say. We'll keep going. I will save you." They keep walking, and soon they come across the wreckage of an old airplane, something that must have crashed into the ocean years ago. They take shelter inside. Julia takes out a family photo they'd taken the night before. The 3 of them look at it quietly, remembering Tom. None of them can believe how much their lives have changed in a single day. Night falls. Cassie and Ben fall asleep, but Julia stays awake for a while, lost in thought. Then, a strange sound wakes Cassie up. She looks out of the plane and sees the killer again. He has found them. Cassie pretends to be asleep as he slowly moves closer. Just as he leans in to attack, Julia strikes from behind. This time, she doesn't hold back. She attacks him with everything she has, filled with rage and pain, and finally kills him. The nightmare is over, at least for now. Exhausted, Julia finally falls into a deep sleep. By morning, when they wake up, the killer's body is still there, but it's been torn apart, hollowed out from the inside. Some unknown creature must have fed on him. Now they know they aren't alone. Dangerous things are living here. They have to move quickly toward the submarine before it's too late. Julia checks the map, trying to figure out the direction. Meanwhile, Ben wanders off looking for water. He finds a small pond and, without thinking, starts drinking from it. Julia had warned him before that the water might be poisonous, but his thirst is unbearable. She runs to stop him, but by the time she reaches him, he's already drunk too much. Soon, he collapses, sick and weak. Julia and Cassie build a small shelter to let him rest. While they're resting, Julia hears strange clicking noises. She steps outside and sees hundreds of giant crabs crawling toward them. They start running for their lives again. Not far away, they spot a massive cargo ship stranded on the dry seabed. It's full of shipping containers, and when they approach, they see people hiding inside them. But as soon as those people spot Julia and her children, they panic and hide, locking the doors, not because they're afraid of Julia, but because they see the army of crabs coming behind them. Julia and her kids beg for help, banging on the container doors, but no one opens. The crabs are almost upon them now. With no choice left, Julia helps her kids climb up onto the top of a container. Just as she's climbing, one of the crabs bites her leg. She screams but manages to pull herself up and tie a scarf around the wound before fainting from pain and exhaustion. Cassie and Ben watch in horror as the crabs start tearing through the container walls and attack the people inside. Gunshots echo as the survivors try to fight back, but there are too many crabs. One by one, everyone inside is killed. When Julia wakes up the next morning, she realizes her children aren't beside her. Panicking, she looks around until she sees them returning. They'd gone out to find food and weapons. Thankfully, the crabs are gone. Julia tends to her injured leg, while Ben collects weapons from the destroyed containers to defend themselves. They also manage to find some food. Julia contacts Captain NATO again through the radio. His voice is weak. He tells her he's been attacked by the same creatures and is badly wounded. He can't help them anymore. He also warns her that the ocean water will soon return. That's why these sea creatures have reappeared. Julia breaks down crying. To make things worse, they've lost their map during the chaos and no longer know which direction the submarine is in. To help them, the captain fires a flare into the sky. Ben spots it in the distance, far, far away. They immediately start moving toward it. But the journey is dangerous. The only way forward is through sharp, rocky terrain, where those deadly crabs might still be hiding. Cassie worries about her mother's survival. She says, "When we reach the submarine, the captain can only take 2 people, me and Ben." "But what about you, Mom?" Julia replies firmly, "Don't think about that now. We'll decide when we get there. Keep moving." They press on, but fate isn't done testing them. Suddenly, a landslide begins. A massive boulder crashes down, trapping Julia behind it. She shouts to Cassie and Ben to go on without her. Cassie refuses to leave, but Julia makes her promise, "You must save yourself and your brother, no matter what." Heartbroken, Cassie takes Ben and continues toward the submarine. When they finally reach it, it's empty. They pound on the hatch, calling for help. Then Captain NATO appears, badly injured. He tells them, "The submarine can fit 3 people, but I'm too hurt to survive. Even if I reach the surface, I'll die." Hearing this, Cassie turns and runs back toward her mother. Behind her, the crabs are coming again, an entire swarm. Julia is fighting them off with a gun, but her bullets run out. Just as one crab leaps at her, Cassie appears above and reaches out her hand. Julia grabs it, and together they climb up and run toward the submarine. They jump inside and seal the hatch. The crabs slam against the outside, scratching and shrieking. And then, the ground begins to tremble. A deafening roar fills the air. A massive wall of water, hundreds of meters high, is racing toward them. It crashes into the submarine with incredible force. Everything goes black. When Julia wakes up, she finds herself alive, surrounded by silence. The submarine isn't underwater anymore. The huge wave carried them all the way to what used to be a city, now completely destroyed and buried beneath water and debris. It's clear now that humanity is gone. The world has been washed clean. And with that haunting sight, the story comes to an end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.